Hello, fabulous friends and fans. Welcome to your horoscope for the week of June the 14th, 2015. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. This week begins with the sun meeting Mars in the sky. This is energy and clarity and direction of will. Now, I might have mentioned this last week as well, because this is an energy that we've been building towards and will really be able to conclude last week and start this week with this very strong energy. This is really where our will and our rational understanding meets our passion, and we have a deep understanding of what direction it is that we now desire to go and make the most of this time. But what's really encouraging to me is as these two planets meet, what is also happening is that Saturn will retrograde back into the sign of Scorpio. Now, this is a really good time for you to watch your Saturn special again, not the most recent one I did, but the one before, where I talk about the Saturn special as Saturn moved to the sign of Scorpio and what that meant for your sign, because this is going to be sort of that final touch, that cherry on the top, that clarity of understanding of how to best use this energy. What is it that Saturn's been trying to bless our lives with? How is it that Saturn has been trying to get us to take responsibility for our happiness in at least one area of life? And what is it that we now need to do to make progress happen, to bring about the highest blessings that can come about and that are promised with Saturn as long as we're willing to do the work? And that's the thing. Saturn is fair. Saturn wants to bring things into your life, but they have to be things that come as a result of earning it, and self-respect that comes as a result of trusting the path and diligently moving towards a goal. So now Saturn's going to be retrograding back into the sign whose ancient ruling planet is Mars. I just see this as such a good omen, as having that clarity and having that motivation to make the best use of this last 3 months. This last 3 months that Saturn is going to be in the sign of Scorpio for a very long time to come, for well over 2 decades. So we're not going to see anything like Saturn moving into Scorpio again for a good long while. And so make the most of this time. It kicks off a very productive 3 months and really bringing about rewards that we've been working on, we've been chipping away on since late 2012. I also think that when I think back to late 2012, as I was sharing back then as well, you know, to me that was very much about the end of one age and the beginning of a new age, as prophesized by the Mayans. And also, this really was when we saw huge shifts take place for a lot of people on our planet. And I think that Saturn being in Scorpio is definitely a part of that. So this is part of us getting honest with ourselves. And that's what Scorpio energy is all about. It's about seeing the nitty-gritty, seeing what everyone doesn't want to see, and seeing the value in it, seeing the benefit of it, seeing the beauty in what is otherwise rejected or cast aside. And in this way, getting in touch with a true source of power and a true source of wealth within us. And I think that that's what this new age that we as humanity are now moving into is all about. And I think that Saturn moving back into the sign of Scorpio is going to allow us to clear the way, to get rid of any kind of residual that we may have been carrying into this new age that's been getting in the way of us living a brand new chapter of our life. So wherever it is that you're ready to start fresh, or maybe you haven't been ready, at least now you're going to start to get honest about that. So it starts with motivation and clarity meets a real understanding of where your work is. And once you connect to that, everything else will come about that much more easier. We'll find that much more easier a flow to it as well. Moving along this week, what we also have happening is a new moon in the sign of Gemini. And this new moon is happening Sun, Moon, and Mars together in the sign. So again, this whole idea of being motivated, being driven, being inspired. And a lot of us out there, I think, are going to be ready to move forward where we have felt stagnated. Now, there are still some points of clarity set to be reached next week. I'll be here to talk about it then. But we've got so much cosmic support for taking whatever was so confusing and hard to grasp, and whatever you wanted to move forward on but felt delays or felt disappointment. Now the energy shifts. Now a clearing happens, really, and we get it. That proverbial it drops, and we get it, where it is that we're desiring to have those new chapters, where it is that we haven't been taking responsibility and are ready to do the work, and where it is that we're ready to face some very hard truths about ourselves. This is inspiration, determination, clarity, meeting self-honesty. And from there, truly amazing things are set to take place. Well, thank you so much for watching the introduction. I'm so excited about what's coming up next week, and that's all I'm going to say about it. Lots of really cool stuff coming up next week that I've been working on for so long. Really hope that you're here. If you're on my newsletter, please do come on my website, join me on my newsletter, because I'll be announcing all this kind of stuff of new offerings that I hope that you will enjoy. And I love your interactions so much, so please do keep them coming. Facebook, Twitter, Google+, my website, NadiyaShah.com, and the YouTube comments as well. I do read you. I do try to acknowledge you. I do, when I can't answer right away, I keep notes. When you suggest videos, I keep notes, and I am listening, and I am just so grateful for your enthusiasm. Sometimes I'm asked questions that are a little bit more personal. Please do consider a personalized horoscope where I can do just that, answer questions that may be specific to you, looking at your unique birth chart. But again, I'm just so grateful that you're here in this moment. I very much believe, I always affirm the universe is wise and loving. It's my mission to affirm that in this world. And I'm so grateful that you're here to in some way allow me not only to fulfill that mission, but also my hope is that these videos in some way provide you with an omen that you need to remind you of this very sacred truth. So how all this wonderful celestial stuff speaks to you and your sign is coming up right now. Hello, fabulous Aries. This week we've got this new moon happening in a part of the sky that is saying speak. Talk. Now is the time to have that conversation, to reach that agreement as well, and to get the thing in writing that maybe you've been sort of dancing around a little bit. And so this is going to be a really important time for you too. Actually, if there have been any fears about really coming clean, this is going to be part of that. Now, when I say coming clean, I don't mean let your secrets fly, okay? I think there's going to be part of that desire to do that, but there's a way to do that and still feel safe. But what I do mean is where it is, you've got to hammer out some details. You've got this new moon on your side to help you in support of that. And speaking of feeling vulnerable, where it comes to love this week, I do think that there is that possibility, there is that promise on offer as well that we can, each of us, but especially for you, where it comes to really allowing yourself to get closer to another person, this is going to be a week where you're not going to want the superfluous. You're not going to want those light, easy, breezy interactions, but rather you are wanting a real soul experience and a soul merging with another person. And so that desire alone will have you looking at, if you're not getting that, what it is that needs to change within you so that you can move closer to the type of real and authentic intimacy you desire. Where it is that you do have that, you're going to find yourself having a moment that reaches right into your heart and moves the two of you even closer. Hello, fabulous Taurus. This week we've got a new moon happening in a part of the sky for you that is decidedly financial. So there's financial news on offer for you now. You add to this the fact that we've got Saturn moving back into the part of the sky that has to do with partnerships and alliances. I think these are going to be two areas that come into focus for you. So whether it is a business alliance, which I think is, when you've got this financial part of the sky being highlighted, plus your opposite sign being highlighted, it might be a business relationship that now all of a sudden asks for a lot more of your attention, your motivation, your real dedication as well is going to come up at this time where you're looking at where you are financially, where this partnership is benefiting you, and where it is that you could be doing more to be a part of and a more active part of creating more prosperity for yourself within the partnership or otherwise as well. But it does look like a financial new start is set to happen, new financial ideas that really help inspire you. So speaking of Saturn moving into your opposite sign, so you're one of those people who's been going through lessons in partnership, and that includes love as well. So wherever it is, and the universe has been trying to get you real since late 2012, really, trying to get you to be honest with yourself about where you are in love. That's really what it comes down to. Be honest and don't stay out of fear, but stay out of genuine dedication and respect and a real desire to know yourself more deeply and to know another person more deeply and to respect them as a result. So relationships have been worked. There's a little more work to do to solidify the learning that you have been going through. Now, I've been speaking about in the year ahead horoscopes, I have been speaking about, and as we've been going along week to week, month to month, Venus will retrograde back into, will retrograde this summer, rather. Next week we'll be going into shadow, but we'll retrograde this summer. And to me, I do think the fact that we're going to have this retrograde happening at the same time that you've got Saturn moving into your opposite sign, goddess of love going backwards, Saturn moving back into your opposite sign, I do think that this is a time when you can start to expect maybe if there's anything unresolved from people that you might have met, particularly if you met them after like sort of the late part of 2012, you can expect to start hearing news and start reaching points of resolution, not only this week, but in the couple of months to come, the next 3 months to come. Hello, fabulous Gemini. This week, new moon in your sign. That's big. That is so big. We usually get one new moon per sign per year, and this is yours. And it is a chance to begin again. It is a fresh new year of your life. So how are you going to really deal with this? How are you going to make the most of it? Well, it really comes down to you. Mars is right there involved in this particular new moon. And this suggests to me that you are being asked to really be honest. That whole element that I spoke about in the introduction of being honest with yourself, of being really willing to look at the nitty-gritty and find the beauty in it becomes that much more. But really the idea of responsibility for yourself and your own happiness becomes that much more amplified as well under the light of this particular new moon. Now, here's the thing that can happen when we have this type of new moon and Mars is involved. It certainly is an awakening of body. So at least where it comes to you getting in touch with some really strong emotions that can happen. One way that can also happen is through romantic alliances. Particularly, I'm thinking of things like attraction, right? Being attracted to somebody, feeling yourself drawn to another person and feeling that sense of awakening as a result on a level of body. That certainly can happen for you now, romantically speaking, whether it's in an established bond or otherwise. But it may actually be that you've got to have some sort of experience that reminds you that you are embodied for a reason, that you breathe for a reason that allows you to claim your power. So whether that comes about in a romantic situation or whether that comes about with you, in some way the universe is going to ask you to move, it's going to ask you to get active in some way so that you can get in touch with your own power. Really great time to start any kind of exercise program. I gotta say, if you've been one of those people who maybe, you know what happens, we go through different phases depending on what else is in your chart, right? Some people's charts are very clearly much more fitness oriented than others. Some people's charts are very fluctuating, they go through cycles. If you are one of those people who maybe isn't necessarily very active or goes through these fluctuations, this is a time when you can really get in touch with a very strong desire within you to create change in your life and allow the physical part of that to be a metaphor for you. So lots of awakenings happen, lots of determination. Make sure you keep the focus on you, because if you make the focus too much about what you're not happy about in your external world, you'll just get frustrated. Take ownership for the change that is in your power and move yourself in a direction that you desire. Hello, fabulous Cancer. This week we have got a new moon happening in the sign just before yours. This is going to be the dominant energy. The new moon is going to be the dominant energy for a lot of us out there. You add to this the fact that Saturn, big energy for a lot of us also, moving back into a part of the sky for you that has to do with romance and creativity. So it's set to be an important time of a shift for you on the one hand, on a level of psyche. So this isn't necessarily a conscious process. This is going to be you know, a lot of stuff coming out in your dreams, a lot of purification taking place on a level of spirit and psyche in that realm. So make sure you're getting a lot of rest. We have Mars in this part of the sky as well, makes rest more challenging, more difficult, but you really want to take that extra time and get as much sleep as possible. You'll be so glad for it. You'll be so grateful to do that. Also, when I think about moving forward from there, and you add the fact that Saturn is going to be retrograding back into a part of the sky for you that has to do with thinking about your self-actualization, thinking about your fulfillment, thinking about your happiness, and thinking about love and what love is going to mean. Not partnership necessarily, but the feelings of love and what that's going to provide for you. I just think that this is going to represent a really important turning point moment for you. Now, bigger turning points are going to come up in about a month's time. 28.5 days to be exact, once we have a new moon in your sign, and next week once the sun goes into your sign. But having said that, this is when a lot of the groundwork is going to start to be laid for some really bold and new beginnings to come up for you. So right now, sleep, get lots and lots of rest. You'll be so glad for it. And also allow yourself to feel disappointments of the past, love that didn't work out, where it is that you haven't been taking ownership for your creative fulfillment and where you could be doing more of that. Where it is maybe that you haven't been listening to your instincts as much and you need to be doing more for that as well. Now, I also think, as I look at this, that we are going to have, like, where it comes to love, I think this is going to speak very powerfully in terms of you sort of wrapping up any issues of love and learning to trust yourself and what you desire again. Those of you in an established bond, I mean, I think that this is going to be, how do you want to grow? Where do you want this to go forward? If you're dating this person, if you're in an established bond, it's one thing. It has to do with, how is this going to flourish? What are we going to create together? If you're dating somebody, is this somebody I really want to be with? Who is this person really? Am I happy in this dating situation? Do I want something deeper? Can I continue going in a lighter direction? And if you're open to meeting somebody new, this certainly is going to make that process seem like, on one level, you know that's where your learning is. So you'll be pursuing experiences that help you to get to know new people. May put you in situations where you got to start flirting again and not know how you feel about it. But trust me, just get in the game. Just put yourself in the game. And I think you'll find yourself slowly but surely coming back to a remembrance of why love actually does add sweetness to life. Hello, fabulous Leo. This week we've got a new moon happening in a part of the sky for you that has to do with friendship. It has to do with alliances. It has to do with the groups that you belong to and allowing other people to be there for you. It has to do with being social as well. And so I do think that this is at the very least going to bring with it a real motivation to connect with others on a friend level, to spend time with friends. Also very likely to bring invitations as well, to go to more, whether it's mixers or more casual sort of gatherings as well. Now, what's interesting to me about this, what I mean by mixers, is that, you know, I think about like when we belong to different groups and memberships and alliances, and we have certain like we're officially allied with people in terms of our work, in terms of our interests as well. When we have those, what often happens when you join groups, I mean, for example, I'm part of different astrology groups, right? So often these astrology groups locally or those that are more internationally based will have events that take place to help astrologers get together and mingle and feel like we're not aliens just sort of out there speaking a whole other language and translating this language for the masses. That's what I mean when I see this type of new moon. I mean that you may just get some sort of invite or hear something about an event taking place as part of some community, some larger community that you belong to. So this isn't as immediate as what you belong to sort of like in your neighborhood, but this is a little bit larger. If you belong to a cause or you belong to a larger group, this is about you getting together with people based on that interest, to come together so that you know that you are not as alone as it might feel sometimes. All of us at times feel that alone feeling. This is going to be the universe trying to get you to be more social, get you out and about. Now, where it comes to love, you still got Venus moving through your sign. Venus is not in shadow just yet. Venus isn't so active this week. I would take this with a burst of gratitude, okay? Because the love lessons are going to kick up more and more as we move into this month, as we move into July and August as well. And so this week, if you can focus on the friendship part of it, enjoy other people just sort of a little bit casually, I think you're going to find that that feeling of friendship will allow you a series of experiences that you will consider for many weeks to come as well. And it's also going to be at this time that who your friends are, who you can really trust, especially with the more private matters, will reveal itself to you that much more. Saturn moving into the part of the sky for you that has to do with home does suggest to me that if there have been any changes on the home front that have been delayed, this is going to start a 3-month process of you wrapping things up, looking at where you are in matters of home. Do you like it? Do you not? Where it is that change needs to happen there as well. And this is also going to be you understanding the value of time on your own. So make sure you embrace that. I think that there's so much that's so good to look forward to. And a lot of it is going to start right now as you get more deeply comfortable with yourself and understand how many other people you actually can be comfortable with as well. Hello, fabulous Virgo. This week we have got a new moon happening in the part of the sky for you that has to do with your career, that has to do with the direction you desire to go. Now, this has been an area of the sky that has been in focus for you since early May. At that time, we started feeling a buildup of energy. A party started in this part of the sky, and now the party will slowly but surely start wrapping down, okay? But this is part of that process. So we've got this new moon representing new beginnings, representing clarity, representing insight, representing understanding of where you want to go, not only in terms of your work and your career, but in terms of your life, in terms of your purpose, in terms of your highest direction. So what kind of legacy are you trying to leave? What kind of direction is it that you're trying to go in? All of this is going to be prime. It's going to be so important to you now. So my advice would be, as I see this, is think big. That's really what it comes down to. Think big. Now, if you can, if you have the chance to schedule any type of interview situation, I would do this as soon as possible this week, particularly in the second half of the week. I would say Tuesday onwards, right? So more than second half of the week. But I would do it as soon as possible because next week we're going to have some interesting things happening in the sky. I'll be here to talk about it then. Mainly the last of 3 conversations between Neptune and Mercury moving through this part of the sky as well. So it does suggest to me that if you really want your best shot, especially if you're trying to impress somebody who's higher up on the ladder or someone in a position of power, an authority figure or boss, this is the time. Utilize the energy of this new moon. You'll have the bravery, you'll have the valor, you'll have the determination to actually ask for what it is you want. And often when we ask for what we want, we're much more likely to get it as well. Where it comes to love this week, I do think that this particular new moon is speaking to thinking big, right? So when I see this, the dominant energy at any given time is about thinking big. It is about thinking about big picture stuff. It suggests to me that you're also going to be thinking about that in the context of love. It's going to be hard to really focus in on the smaller kind of nitty-gritty stuff when you know you've got this bigger picture stuff that is there in your face. So if you are trying to meet somebody new right about now, you're dating somebody, you're going to be looking at, does this person fit in with where it is I believe I'm meant to go? Now, whether it seems like that or not doesn't make that the reality of the situation. Just that sometimes if we get sort of caught in, well, this person isn't where I think that they should be, you have to be really careful for that, because then it's like you're saying that you know better about their life path than they might know on a soul level, right? Everybody is exactly where it is that they need to be, and where someone is now isn't necessarily where they're going to be a little bit further down the road. So that's another reason, always be nice. I've really learned this. There's so much value in being nice and being respectful to every single person you meet, no matter where you think they are, no matter what, how it is that we might judge them and their social scale. because you never know where someone is going to be tomorrow. But not only that, the inherent dignity that all of us have. So when I see this, I just see that risk, you running that risk of judging somebody instead of looking at them for where they might be in terms of their spiritual process and the value of that. If you are in an established bond, I mean, you're making plans and you're thinking big plans and you're thinking, how is it that this person is going to fit into that or not? And this is actually really healthy, because a part of this process is going to mean that you get to separate where it is that this person is part of your career direction, that higher path you're going on, or if you know they have a path of their own. So you're creating a healthy sense of detachment, a healthy sense of separation that's going to allow you to focus more on the things that matter to you, and also allow you to accept and respect that other person that you're with that much more. Hello, fabulous Libra. This week we have got a new moon happening in fellow air sign Gemini. Now, whenever there is a new moon in a sign of the same element as yours, it means that that moon represents you stepping more into your element. So there's something, a very natural connection that happens, and a natural fresh start that tends to be more meaningful when it is a new moon in your particular element. So we've got this new moon happening, and it's happening in a part of the sky for you that has to do with vision. It has to do with stepping out into more of the world, considering more of the world, taking on an adventure. Now, if you are one of those Libras, for some reason I've been hearing from Libras, it feels like I've been hearing from a lot of Libras who are in school these days. And I think that actually makes sense for lots of different reasons. One is because we've had so much energy happening in this part of the sky for the last couple of months, but also because we've had Saturn so far since the start of the year, just before the year started, in the sign of education. And I think that this has been sort of a natural place that the air signs, more than others, have picked up on. So we've got this particular connection taking place. It suggests to me that you are very likely thinking more about just what it is that you need to do to learn, to take on whatever it is that you need, skills, or what it is that you can do now to put yourself in an ideal position to manifest even bigger and greater things a little bit further down the road. So for some of you, you might be thinking, what can I do right now so that I can manifest something big a month from now? Others might be thinking a lot more longer term and a lot more bigger picture as well. Now, as I said, if you're in school, if you're in any kind of educational process, I do think this new moon is going to work very much in your favor, especially when it comes to tests, and especially where it comes to embracing tests as an athletic event. I gotta say, I remember for me, like, it's been quite a few years now since my undergrad days when I was doing tests and things, but I remember how much I used to love them because I would take them as a sporting event. I would say, okay, I'm going in, I'm gonna give it my best shot, and then I'm gonna leave, and I'm gonna leave everything there. Any kind of regret or any kind of second guessing or whatever, I just left it there. So I went in totally with my game head on, totally ready to just be focused and to excel. And that to me was part of the joy of taking tests. I found it a lot of fun. Whether or not I did that well, that's another matter, how prepared I was. And so I share this with you because that is really what's going to help you now, is to really understand where the test is. Where are you being tested? Now, whether it is in a formal environment or otherwise, the time now that you really can exceed and succeed more greatly than you could before is if you summon that spirit of actually taking this on as some sort of a sacred intellectual warrior of sorts, and really channeling your energy to do very well, to prove to yourself how much you know. Of course, be prepared, but also be in the moment as well. For others of you, this is going to be taking on an adventure in terms of travel, and a chance to travel may actually come up. I think come up very much like sort of, okay, I'm doing this. And it may seem very last minute, but for some of you actually, I think it's been simmering for a little while. But there are going to be some of you who are going to get that chance to travel. And it'll either be, this isn't necessarily going to be a short travel. This is going to be something that is, you know, in another country or on the other border of your country. the other side of the coast, if you will. So something that likely involves taking a plane, but it does look like to fill you with a lot of happiness as well. Where it comes to love, I mean, this can also be traveling for love. This can be taking on an adventure for love. So those of you in an established bond might find yourself doing something really fun, a little novel, a little new with the person you love. Those of you open to meeting somebody new, you may actually make a connection, might be online with somebody and decide to run with it very, very quickly. Now, do keep in mind we're still in Mercury shadow period. But for all that, if you can, it seems like you're taking it more as an adventure than anything else. So as long as you're in that spirit of openness, in that spirit of adventure, then you should find yourself moving in a direction where at the very, very least, you'll create some really lovely memories for yourself and possibly even more in the bigger picture of your life. Hello, fabulous Scorpio. Well, this week, Saturn moves back into your sign. That's huge. Now, those of you born in the last couple days of your sign, so if you're born right around the 19th, the 20th, the 21st, depending on what year as well, but let's give it a really good range. Let's say if you're born between the 17th, 18th, and the 22nd, 23rd of any given month for that matter, but particularly for Scorpios out there, right at the very end of your sign, you are going to be feeling this more than others might, but every Scorpio out there is going to in some way benefit from this energy. Having Saturn in your sign, and I would really advise you to watch that video again that I published way back in 2012, looking at Saturn moving into your sign. Having Saturn in your sign, not always easy, right? I'll be the first to say it. It's not always the easiest energy to deal with, but it can be absolutely amazing in what it allows you to achieve, what allows you to see in yourself as well. And I've seen people make amazing things happen in their life that they hadn't even considered before as a result of taking ownership for that Saturn energy, which is really saying, grow up. Now, for some people out there, if you've been one of those people who found it difficult since late 2012, I don't think it's been a lot of Scorpios out there who found that. But if you're one of those Scorpios who has found it challenging, this should be a time when you get it. Like, you get why it's been challenging. You get honest with yourself on a much deeper level. Like, okay, a lot of those challenges might have been self-created. A lot of those challenges might have come up because you didn't want to look at what was staring you in the face. Well, this is going to be your chance to accept that much more deeply, to look at and find a deeper level of acceptance of who you are and to work with who you are and where you are as well. And those of you who actually have been navigating it very well, which again, I think a lot of Scorpios have been, if you've been navigating this time really well, this can be a time of tremendous achievement, or at the very least, putting things into place that really allow to solidify a sense of happiness for a very long time to come. And that really is what it comes down to. This isn't so much, yes, Saturn is associated with manifestation, associated with, accomplishing great things, all of that, right? And receiving gifts that are tangible, that are solid. All of that is promised with Saturn moving through your sign, or in any sign for that matter, any part of the sky in that area of life. But when Saturn is in your sign, the root of that is your happiness. Why are you not happy? And where is it that you need to change to make yourself happy? Where is it that you have control and where it is you don't? And where you don't have to have control, sometimes that acknowledgement is the greatest step towards happiness as well. That ability to create that separation allows you to move towards greater happiness as well. There's some things that we're never going to have control over. It's just the way that life is, and I believe that, and I think that's part of what Saturn is about when Saturn moves through your sign, is understanding that, it's all, especially in the New Age movement, we're very fond of saying, you manifest everything. Your life is, everything in your life you're responsible for. But then there are times when that's not true, and I think that's what Saturn's about. And Pluto also, your ruling planet, is about. Sometimes you don't have that control. Sometimes your control is to recognize that you don't have to control and to recognize where things are unfair, and thereby saying, okay, I'm going to focus on where I do have control, and I'm going to focus where I can create greater sense of power, personal power for myself, and move myself in a positive direction. That's the blessing of Saturn. That's the great blessing of Saturn. Honesty, meets a real ownership for where it is that you desire to go, and an acceptance of how you can actually get yourself there, the limits of that, and the extension of that as well. You're going to get a chance to really do some valuable work within, in your spirit and otherwise. I think that this new moon in Gemini is only going to help that process of self-honesty and help put you on a very solid path, a solid path that ensures that you connect with something really solid and stable and unshakable within you that is going to give you structure and strength for decades to come. Hello, fabulous Sagittarius. This week we've got a new moon happening in your opposite sign at the same time Saturn leaving your sign. I think that this is going to be good for you all around. This is going to be good for you in terms of being more open to love, allowing love to awaken you. It's also going to be really good in terms of you just being able to relax a little bit more. Just a little, not promising you a tremendous amount. In fact, Saturn moving into the sign just before yours can create a little bit of a free-floating anxiety you don't always know what to do with. But for all that, I actually think this is going to be a tremendous time, a positive time, a time that really helps to elevate you and move you in a direction that I think you're going to like very much, helps move you in a direction that feels strong and stable. But I also think, as I look at this, with this particular new moon in your opposite sign, that love and partnership is going to be a huge part of the realizations and revelations you're having right now. It's almost as if a secret is going to come forward, like what you haven't wanted to look at, what you've been suppressing, what you've been avoiding is going to come to the surface. And there's really not a lot you can do when it does come up except acknowledge it. And so if you're one of those Sagittarius who feels like, okay, there's something going on, but I can't put my finger on it, it's not coming to awareness, let it go. Don't worry. You'll have lots of chances within the next 3 months to have things come to surface. But I do think that if you're willing to engage with others one-on-one, especially on a level of heart, then that process will only be facilitated. What comes to light needs to come to light so that you can acknowledge it, purify it, whatever the case may be. Now, here's what's also really amazing. When we have a new moon in your opposite sign, the lesson is partnership and lesson is love. In fact, someone is going to be there. If you're one of those people who's been single for a really long time, it happens. So depending on your individual birth chart, it can happen, right? That depending, again, you see it more in an individual birth chart, but in an individual birth chart, there are certain markers that suggest that a person might go through periods of being single for a while, and then they'll have, a flood and all kinds of admirers coming in, and then they'll be single for a little while. It happens. It's part of life for some of us out there. And this is a chance to, with the new moon in your opposite sign, to understand where you are in love that much more deeply and to get that clarity as to where you want to go. So if you are in an established bond, your partner is going to need your energy, is going to need your attention. And it looks like all of us are, okay, I got to pay attention to you. I got to be here. You're going to have to be present for your partner this week. And it looks like it's going to be pretty passionate. It can be good. But strong feelings are going to be stirred within an established bond. Those of you who are just dating somebody, this is going to be you looking at them and saying, okay, is this commitment material here? And really getting honest with yourself, likely through a very strong moment that the two of you share. And those of you who are open to meeting somebody new, again, it's very likely someone is going to show up at the very least to show you where your own resistance may be to experiencing a more fulfilling bond. But it does look like at the very least they wake you up, and it is sort of a wake up that has been a long time coming. Hello, fabulous Capricorn. This week we've got a new moon happening in a part of the sky for you that has to do with work. So work is very much going to be in focus, and there'll be a lot of it. So some of you are going to attract new clients. Some of you are just going to find there's a lot of work to do, a lot of work to either catch up on, especially considering the recent Mercury retrograde, a lot of stuff to sift through as well. So it does look like you will be busy at the very least where it comes to work. Now, for others of you out there, I also think if you're, like I said, if you're self-employed, the chance of new clients coming seems to be particularly strong. They may be demanding, more demanding than you're necessarily used to or comfortable with, but if you can embrace that, I think you'll find it moving in a very positive direction overall. Since late 2012, you and Scorpio have been in what is called mutual reception. So this is something astrologers look at. And what it means is when you are holding in your sign the ruling planet of another sign, and your ruling planet is in that sign, there's an easy flow of energy taking place between the two signs because you're hosting each other's ruling planet. So your representatives in the sky are visiting each other's signs. So there's this connection that's happening that is beyond other connections that may be there. There's a simpatico of energy taking place. So this actually has worked very much to your advantage. It means that as Saturn's been moving through this part of the sky, something about this has felt really natural to you, has been reaching the right places. You've been able to make a lot more personal connections and personal gains as a result. So that's why I do think that most Capricorns out there have found this a time of a lot of achievement, have found this a time of a lot of progress as well, because they've been able to utilize the best of having Pluto in their sign and the best of their ruling planet as well, because both of these planets and signs have been working to lift each other, as is the case with you. So now we've got Saturn retrograding back into this part of the sky. It suggests to me that something within you is going to start to feel more on, if you will. It's going to start to feel a little bit more like you're able to work with the energies that much more easily, work with the energies around you. You're able to bring a lot more together a lot more quickly, and you're able to find, most importantly, the social support to make yourself advance and to make things happen for yourself as well. So lots of good things coming about there. I really love this for you. It just suggests to me that you are going to find people being really supportive of what you want to do. Yes, it's going to kick off a busy time, but it's a busy time where you're really thinking bigger than you have in a long time. You're thinking about the higher wishes you have for your life, and you're steadily on a path towards them. Now, where it comes to love this week, I do think that the social stuff is going to be getting so much of your attention that this can be really great in terms of if you are in an established bond, you're going to find yourself wanting to do more social stuff with your partner. And if you are just dating somebody, you're going to get to know them even more in social context, so you get a fuller picture of who they are. If you're open to meeting somebody new, you may find some really strong flirty moments taking place, whether amongst friends or also very likely some strong flirtation taking place in the workplace as well. So it's going to be up to you to kind of decide how you're going to navigate that, but at the very least, it should get your attention. Hello, fabulous Aquarius. This week we have got a new moon happening in a part of the sky for you and fellow air sign for you. I think this is going to represent such an important week for you as part of some larger lessons that have been taking place since early May in particular. Now, you won't be completely done with the lessons, but this is going to represent one of those peak moments. As I said for the Libra horoscope, when you have a new moon in your element, in a sign of your element, which Gemini is. Gemini is an air sign, like your sign. It's like you can work with that energy that much more. The best of your own element, feeling in your element, is able to come up that more easily. Now, this is a part of the sky that I've been talking about, especially because of Mercury moving back and forth in this part of the sky. Mercury now direct, but still not that strong. This has to do with romance and love and joy and creativity and fertility as well. So all of these areas of life are going to be highlighted for you. Now, I do want to say, I'm going to squeeze this in a little bit. It's a bit of an FAQ. I recently got a message from somebody, and I think it was Lisa, fabulous friend and fan Lisa, who's an Aquarius, wants to get married, and said, well, you haven't been talking about this for a while. You said in the yearly horoscope, you know, maybe try to avoid being married, but is it good? Are we good to go? Can we do it? Does it not matter anymore? Sorry to say it, but I've been mentioning it as we go along. I didn't want to hammer you over the head with it, but you know, we've had Gemini, as I've been saying, Gemini energy, when you have Mercury retrograding in this part of the chart, the agreements, the things that happen under this energy don't always stay consistent. Sometimes they turn out even better, but you've got to pace yourself a little bit. You add to this that very soon, next week, Venus is going to enter shadow in this part of the sky. Not in this exact part of the sky, but in your opposite sign, also speaking to love as well. Look, if you really got to do it, like I spoke of in the year ahead horoscope, then you got to trust your life. You got to do what you got to do. But I've seen people, like all kinds of amazing things happen. For example, I actually know somebody who married somebody, and it was kind of like, sort of like the sky, but not exactly. And 20 years into the marriage, like some similar stuff was happening at the time that they got married with Venus, with Mercury retrograde, with Venus retrograde. And the ex-wife of her husband of 20 years came back and said, hey, I was trying to marry somebody else, but it turns out we're still married. And so they had to like make sure that divorce that they thought they had was actually final, and they had to remarry all over again. Like, this is the kind of stuff that can come up seemingly out of nowhere, like years into the future. So look, if you're committed, you're committed. You can have it be, I mean, it can end up being a funny, cute story like that. It gave them a chance to really go all out and have a wonderful additional wedding, their second wedding. That was much more magical than their first. So if you're open to the adventure, then go for it. Why not? But I just do think that, especially when you get married, just try to have as strong a sky as possible. If you have the chance, if you're not, you know, in one of those positions where you got to get married right now, it's not a shotgun wedding or anything, then you can wait a little bit. So I'll just suggest that. And especially now, yes, we have this Gemini new moon. And the reason I share this is because I think a lot of Aquarians out there are going to be feeling really romantic, feeling very fired up and swept away. And, you know, like this is the kind of energy where you meet somebody and all of a sudden it's like, yes, this is it. Let's move. Let's do it. And you might actually feel that way very strongly. You've got Jupiter coming up next week. We're going to have Jupiter speaking with Uranus, very, very harmonious for engagements and weddings and all that. It'll be just sort of in that in-between space. So if you really wanted to get married this weekend, you could push it. Yeah, we do have Mercury speaking with Neptune, easing into its final square with Neptune, but, you know. Okay, so putting that aside, all this is to say that I think a lot of Aquarians out there are going to be feeling swept up in love, wanting to move things way ahead, right? You meet somebody and you want to marry them within 5 days. Or you've been with somebody for 10 years and you can't wait anymore. You want to get married right now. But it looks like there's this feeling there. There are lots of feelings, lots of emotions happening, whether you're meeting somebody new, dating somebody, or in a committed bond. There's going to be a real drive to move things along. You know where your learning is, and so whatever you feel inspired should always go first and foremost. But as an astrologer, I have to say, I get it, I feel it, but if you can pace yourself a little bit, you will probably find that things work much more to your advantage in the bigger picture. But again, you know where your learning is. So lots of romantic energy, a lot of fertility energy this week also, and lots of energy just saying that love is definitely on your side, and that love is where some of your most powerful learning and joys are going to come from now. Hello, fabulous Pisces. This week we have got a new moon happening at the very base of your chart, the very bottom of your chart. You add to this that Saturn is going to retrograde back into a part of the sky for you that has to do with well, this is fellow water sign, so it has to do with what you're thinking about in terms of the vision you have for your life. It has to do with the prospect of travel or immigration or education. All of these are going to be highlighted for you now. So if you've had any like sort of questions around areas of immigration or about travel, if there have been any kind of like, okay, things were going forward, then they weren't, then you got a letter and you didn't know what to make of it. Now you're going to slowly but steadily start to understand how you're going to move yourself forward, especially if there's a connection between where you live and also matters of things like citizenship. So if you're a foreigner and you're trying to buy foreign property, or you're a foreign student, all of this is going to be that much more amplified, where these are going to be areas that require your attention. Having said that, I do think that the new moon is going to be one of the more dominant energies because Saturn is sort of retrograding back for the next 3 months in a part of the sky that he was hanging out in for quite a while, for over 2 years. So this is energy that you've been kind of used to, you know. So if you have any sort of last minute sort of things, you want to make sure your transcripts are in order, you want to make sure all your final fees are paid for, all of that kind of stuff, this is going to be your chance to do that, to tie up any loose ends in those regards. However, where it comes to the new moon tends to be a lot more immediate. It's emotional, it's on the surface. It's like, okay, you've got to start something here. You've got to plant a seed here. And it comes to matters of home. Now, this is actually an area of life that you've been dealing with since early May. Different issues might have come up on the home front. This is going to be your chance to get the clarity you need to understand how you're going to move forward as well. Now, keep in mind that I'll talk more about it next week, but Mercury will make its last series of 3 squares to Neptune in your sign. So it looks like some things might feel a little off, might feel a little less than ideal, but if you can work with it, it can certainly go to your advantage. Look at where it is that the universe is asking you to get clear, to be honest, where it is the universe is saying, okay, this is where you start. That's what new moons are. For some of you, this is going to be a chance to sell, to buy, to begin again. But as I advised you, I remember a couple weeks back, I said, check the water pipes. Make sure the water is running fine. Make sure the pipes are all strong. These are going to be the areas that you want to focus in on. On a more personal level, it does look like, and this happens sometimes, I'm going to just put this out there, if there have been any issues, you know, I think about how a lot of energy modalities, right, healing modalities, deal with how we store energy in the body, and particularly how we deal with stored emotions in the body and how they might manifest. This is a great time for you to be getting any kind of energy treatment on those fronts where it comes to you feeling more at home in your body. There might be some, especially as we move to the later part of the week into next week, you might have stored some emotions that are manifesting in interesting ways in your body, and this is going to be a powerful release that happens. So it doesn't have to be that water is coming out of your house, but rather that tears just need to flow so that the house of your soul, that is your body, can really truly feel cleansed, feel lighter, feel freer. In fact, I do think that a lot of Pisceans out there are building towards a moment where they really are going to allow themselves to feel much more lighter and may even look a lot lighter as a result. Just feel free, feel clean, feel light as a result of putting down some emotional baggage. And ultimately, this is about you feeling safe within yourself and knowing that you can give to yourself, be a parent to you. When you come from that place, you will find, and I do believe that this is one of the most powerful points in a chart, because when you've got a strong foundation, which is what this part of the sky represents, so much more becomes possible in every area of life. And that includes love as well. There is a strong personal bent to this week. There's going to be a strong desire to spend time on your own, to be a little bit independent as well, to just get in touch with who you are and to have your little fortress of solitude. And that's really okay. If you're in an established bond, you'll find a way to carve out that space and it will be respected. There might be some strong emotions happening on the home front as well. So if anything needs to be aired out, cleared out in terms of physical stuff of the home, or also the emotions with whom you share your living space with, including romantically, this is going to be a chance to do that. And those of you open to meeting somebody new, there are always a lot of opportunities. I do believe that. But with this type of energy, it's either going to be the universe saying, okay, just be okay with you for the next few days, for the next little while, and someone will come. Or it's going to be you considering the past in a different light as part of your healing so that you can move forward towards greater and greater love. Well, thank you so much to all signs out there. It'll be a great week. Enjoy.